Welcome to our Insight series on organizational well-being. Our question for this week is the Wellness Big Ten. What are the main program intervention options for physical activity? Number 19. As we think through what those main program intervention options are for physical activity in virtually any workplace, I'd like to go through a list of them, and I'd like to do it in a way that indicates the least costly, least difficult, and least effective at the top. And then as we proceed down the list, they become more costly, more difficult, but more effective. So that's the trade-off that we essentially experience in virtually all programming. So let's start with one of the least costly, but not necessarily and the least difficult, but not necessarily the most effective. That's having employees park further away in the parking lot. So if we bring that up and we continue to remind people, that becomes a strategy that we can use to help people get a little more mobility, activity into their usual life pattern each day. We also can have elevator promotions, and the elevator is just a way of thinking about how do we encourage people not to use the elevator, but to use stairways. And that means the stairways have to be accessible and have to essentially be reasonably nice environments for people to take as a alternative to taking an elevator. There's also the installation of a flex time policy for employee exercise. So if employees want to exercise, they essentially can get some flex time considerations for when work starts or when work ends. Another change or intervention would be changing the workplace egress routes. And that means just essentially routing people a little longer distance through into the work site or having them go a little further to exit the work site. So that's adding some additional distance in terms of walking amounts. Another intervention, a little bit more effective, a little bit more difficult, and a little bit more costly, is to provide walking trails and distance markers. And you can use both step equivalents, which connects with a lot of our wearables and a variety of aids and tracking tools that we have, or distance. So the inclusion of either both of those or one of those in the way that you lay out walking trails around the installation, around the neighborhood, around the area where the workplace is located. You can also, the next one is to hold walking meetings. So you can encourage people to think about, particularly in the good weather time periods, to hold walking meetings. You can also provide tracking tools for phones as well as wearables and or programs that are designed to help them structure and remember and remind them about specific activities. You can also negotiate corporate discounts at fitness clubs, at weight loss programs, sleep clinics, and other areas, so we have the whole area of corporate discounting. We can also form walking clubs and support those walking clubs, and the walking clubs can have different levels of intensity and distance as part of the ways in which they're structured. So a variety of different options and alternatives in terms of walking clubs. Another program intervention option would be to sponsor or conduct 5K walks or runs and include family members, but that's another way that we can increase the amount of physical activity that employees generally experience. We can also provide stretch breaks and online reminders that to exercise, get up and walk around, drink a water, take some deep breaths. So a variety of different things that can help break up the pattern of the sedentary day or the inactivity of the day. Another program intervention option, a little bit more expensive, a little bit more difficult, but likely to be a little more effective, is to distribute pedometers and other wearables and or smartphone apps that provide that same function. Another intervention would be to provide some fitness software as a service or apps that can help people structure their physical activity during their day and or week. Another option would be to use a physical activity wellness criteria, and that's where we essentially ask people to have a certain number of physical activity times and or amount of time during a given week, and then keeping track of that, and then having that relate back to a significant premium reduction in their health plan contribution. Another one would be to hold fitness events as part of annual company picnics. So again, a little more costly, a little more difficult to do, but also likely to have a little more effect because you're creating some social situations where people can be active and can have essentially permission to be more active. Another option would be to provide fitness assessment opportunities. So if we are doing biometric screening or preventive screening of any kind, we can in fact include a provision for a fitness assessment that might include cardiovascular fitness, strength fitness, and a range of motion, flexibility, and or balance. And we can also provide fitness classes before or after work. And that's a typical thing that's been done for quite a few years. And that's where we are offering opportunities, formal opportunities, structured opportunities for people to be active in certain ways. Another alternative in terms of program interventions would be to provide shower facilities and or bike racks to encourage people to bike to work and to be able to shower from the workout of the bike trip. Next one would be providing a partial reimbursement for fitness facility dues. My recommendation to you is don't provide more than a 50% reimbursement and have it be connected to a minimum level of usage. And it might be 2 times per week or 3 times per week use of the fitness facility. And that means the fitness facility has to also cooperate with you in being able to provide information which allows you to administer those reimbursements. I would not do any kind of reimbursement without those provisions. Now, the next one is to provide space for on-site fitness club vendor. So you're offering a series of suites or rooms that can be converted into a small fitness center, and you're having a vendor operate it. Another option would be to organize employee recreation league or association. And that was obviously more popular during the early part or the 90s and the first decade of the 20th century, 21st century. But that's another one that's more expensive. It does have more difficulty attached to it, but it also has the potential for more effectiveness and social reinforcement around activity. And finally, to operate and maintain a company fitness facility or recreation facility. And that's where the employer takes on the role of engaging a vendor and managing that vendor's relationship and then supporting that throughout the culture, the work organization, and the culture. So in summary, there are many ways to increase the level of physical activity among employees. Each of these interventions has its own cost, difficulty, and effectiveness levels. It's also a good idea to consider all 4 major elements of physical activity, including cardiopulmonary function, that's oftentimes called aerobic health, strength training, flexibility or range of motion, and finally, balance. Now, for more information on this topic, put the following search strings into your web browser. Tips for increasing employee physical activity, fitness and exercise options for employees, physical activity options for the workplace. Next week, we will address the question, Wellness Big 10, what are the main program intervention options dealing with tobacco use? For more information, please feel free to visit our website at www.wellcert.org. wellcert.chapmaninstitute, one word, .com.